So as I told you about the guidelines, my next slide says that there are certain guidelines which you need to follow. So beginning with the coding standards. So this is something I had been explaining you over the time again and again, that we need to follow the coding standards so that there is better coordination amongst the team members. For example, the variable names might begin with the type of variable. Like I told you that suppose it is int, we write I or int. For string we write str or s or str. For array we write arr or a. So these coding standards needs to be followed so that not only you who is developing the script, or but also suppose there will be some possibility that you are developing the script, but it will be executed by somebody else in the future who doesn't know anything about the script. So the script should have good readability and a good usability. So if you follow the coding standards, it will definitely have a better readability. The second point is structure your data sheets, how your workbooks and the individual sheets in them are grouped together. Now, when you're executing the test cases, obviously you need the test data for executing that. Now, where does this test data? You need to have some repository to keep those test data. So, say for example, you're keeping the test data in the Excel sheets, then we need to follow certain guidelines on how the data should be placed. You cannot just haphazardly place your data anywhere. You need to have a certain structure in which the data is stored so that the script can read the data from your data sheet and execute the application, execute the script. Now, the third point is what folder structure you should follow to store the test scripts, reusability libraries, object repositories. So what are these? Test results, test scripts, reusable libraries, and object repositories. These are nothing but the resources of your any project or any script. Say for example, in your project, you need to save you have involved function libraries. You'll definitely have object repositories, if not descriptive programming. So the files which are created with this, it needs to be saved somewhere explicitly, right? As I said, function library can be saved explicitly with extension .vbs or .qfl. Same way the repositories, if it is shared repository, saved explicitly with extension .tsr. So likewise, we can also save the test results which we want, which we get after the execution of the script. So all these resources, we cannot just dump it anywhere, anyhow. There is a certain structure which needs to be followed so that the entire team understands and there's no confusion amongst the team members. Okay. The fourth point is how should test results be stored and displayed. Whether you want to overwrite the test results every time or you want to save the test results separately. So it's understood that when you're getting the test results for different test cases. Now say for example I'm running a test case for finding the number of 100 mails in my Gmail box. Okay, that's one of the test case. So I'm using different login IDs. So there'll be 10 people login IDs, and I have to verify whether the reading of the 100 mails, the count of the 100 mails in my Gmail ID is working fine for the 10 IDs. So suppose I'm running them one after the another, I'm fetching the data, Qt is fetching the data from the source, and then it is storing the results somewhere. So for 10 runs, there will be 10 different results. Say for example, this is how my structure is. So how will you put those results? You want those results to be displayed successfully, displayed discretely, or you want to override those results if the result is working fine. If suppose my first iteration is working fine, I'll just replace it with the second run. So you want to overwrite the test results every time, or you want to save them separately. The fifth point is how different team members should access that shared repositories, libraries, and how they should update these. So there's a way in which suppose there are shared repositories, then obviously there has to be coordination amongst team that how the objects needs to be updated, right? When you're updating the object repositories, you'll have some logical names to your objects. So there has to be common understanding in the team that what logical names you need to follow and how you'll update it and how you'll use the function libraries where you'll store it. So in this way, there has to be coordination amongst the team members. So these are just some of the guidelines which I have shown. There are many other guidelines, and it depends from project to project, and depends on your team how you want to follow it. Okay, so these set of guidelines are documented in your in a file. You keep it documented so that the team follows it, and this will save maximum amount of time, and there'll be a better coordination in your team. Okay. Now let's see some of the salient features of a good framework. Now we have implemented the framework. Now how do I know that whether the framework which I have implemented is good enough? Now first of all, the framework should be reusable. Okay. Now the entire purpose of automation is reusability. If you're not able to reusable the framework, then it's of no use, because creating a framework itself takes certain amount of time, and when you're putting so much effort to it, obviously you want it to be reusable by you and as well as your team, or some other person, unknown person in the future. So definitely your framework has to be reusable. The second point is the code should be easy to understand and maintain. As I said, the code which is created by you could be used by somebody else, some unknown person who doesn't know anything about the code. So the code should be very easy to understand and maintain so that it has good readability. Third is data parameterization. Data should be parameterized. You cannot use hard-coded values for your test, because if you are using hard-coded values, it won't be reusable. You have to it should be reusable for different sets of data and for different conditions for which the data has to be parameterized. Fourth is the test results should make sense and should be easy to understand. The test results should make sense, otherwise the entire purpose of testing is failed. The reason behind testing is so that you get the results for that, and you can show it to the client. And if the test result doesn't make sense, then it's of no use. So whatever you're doing, whatever you're presenting, has to be shown to client in the form of test results, and has to be sensible, and it has to be easy to understand. The fifth is proper error handling mechanisms. Okay, so what happens is, suppose you're running test cases in a batch. You're running hundreds of test cases, and for a particular framework, and suppose the script is stuck at some point of time due to some error. And what will happen is, you go out for lunch, you run the script and you go out for lunch, thinking that QTP will take some time to run those 100 scripts, but it gets stuck in the second test case itself. So what will happen? Your entire time is wasted, and your efforts are wasted, and there's no point of automation if there's manual intervention. So proper error handling mechanism should be employed, because you're not running just one script, but you're running multiple scripts, and therefore the script shouldn't be stuck at some point, any point of time, and it should have minimum manual intervention. So these are some of the salient features of a good framework. There are other features as well, but just for understanding, I've just put down some points.